job of the writer to live, to experience life, to drink in the heartache and loss and hand-holding, to hurt fully and deep, good and true.
Well, the winter came softly.
That's how you relate to folks with scars. To celebrate like tomorrow ain't coming, and laugh like you got nothing to lose. That's how your poetry grows its wings. Living, not just being alive, but living, man. It teaches you to empathize and wear other people's shoes. Writing is telling the truth through lies, I guess. Living shortens the gap.
You're off to your bed to escape.
From Chris Christopherson to Snoop Dogg, it's the job of a songwriter to walk down a few whiskey-drenched alleyways just as sure as they need to climb up on those Sunday morning mountains, breathe in the clean air. Sinners and saints, we're all on some kind of journey. Good songs carry us down the road. Good writers, they remind us that we aren't traveling alone.
Like you can't feel the chill, like you're dreaming of a different bed, lying under another comforter.
It's been a minute since I sat down with Jason Scott and the High Heat for our Play It Loud episode. They're an Americana rock band with hints of Steve Earle and Tom Petty, layered over some indie alt-country roots. They'll have you feeling good about quitting your job and maybe your girl over a beer. They have an infectious energy in their music. They sound like they wear their collective heart on their thrift store corduroy sleeves, like there might be a tear or two tucked behind the 70s Western pimp / trucker glasses. We kicked around our interview at Lunar Manor, mingled in with a lot of laughs and some stray conversations. It was the same studio I met up with Samantha Crane a few years before. Jason and Gabe and Taylor were easy to talk to and laugh with. There was a chemistry of earnestness and irony woven between the three. Two of the band members, Bobby and Garrison, weren't able to make it. The gang has enough respect to balance out the inside jokes, and it plays well in their songs. We talked about their new album, about how they make it all work.
Yeah, I swear I was probably singing on the platform in church at like 4 and 5 years old. My sisters, like everybody there, it was kind of small, like Pentecostal church. One of the positives of church for sure is they really push, I feel like, music, especially in Pentecostal churches, because that's a huge part of the energy that they feed off of. The preaching is intense and the music is intense, and they want to get that started at an early age. So I'm thankful for that part too. I grew up, I mean, like probably 4 and 5 singing on the platform. And then that existed through, you know, growing up. My parents got divorced when I was like 12, 13. I moved to Colorado and had kind of a period of time where I wasn't in church, and then got back in my like late teen years and spent the next 10 or so as a worship pastor, youth pastor, and preacher and all that stuff.
In that time, were you also aware of like secular music, or were you pretty sheltered as far as like?
Definitely the first.
It's gotta be
part
about
of
Jesus.
Life. Yeah, no, I would have to sneak off to listen
Creed
to.
specifically. That's all he listened to.
Just Creed.
I had a Walkman. I would have to sneak secular music. My uncle, thankfully, was the black sheep of the family, so I could often count on him to. He was a big into like country, old country. He'd often have, I think his Bronco actually had like an 8-track deck in it.
Right on.
So I remember moments like that, but for the most part, yeah, I had to sneak. Occasionally, my mom would like bring up a country song or something, but
Okay.
For the most part, it was me and Jesus and the Light 105, dude.
So then you
4.9.
they split or got divorced, your parents,
Yeah.
and then you moved to
I moved
Colorado.
to-
Now was it Castle Rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. It changed everything, that's for sure. When you're like 12 or 13, sometimes like a newfound freedom isn't like isn't the worst thing ever. You know, I think it really got to my sisters more than it got to me, but I was kind of like, Colorado, you know, a new town, a new place, and I was also like smoking a little weed, like starting to get out there and try stuff that I had never really experienced before. But I think the biggest thing is that because of what my parents splitting up, I kind of they weren't around as much for sure, especially when I was just with my mom. And I kind of just did whatever I wanted for several years. So I experienced a lot of stuff that I'd never experienced before during a time and in a new place. And I think Castle Rock is like some of these songs, and that idea is why I wanted to title the record that. It was just such a paradigm shift, really, or like a huge change in location and in my restrictions, my responsibilities, that type of stuff.
Just transformative across the
Totally,
board.
and I feel like that really influenced me later on in life when I finally left church again forever. I had been just acting up for so many years now that my life wasn't really going anywhere. There was a couple pretty serious things that happened that I probably won't get into here. But they definitely influenced me getting back into church. And then I met my wife, and that changed a bunch of stuff too.
Was she involved with church as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, before I left for Colorado, we had the Pentecostals all they have camp meetings and all sorts of stuff together. I knew her growing up my whole life too. She went to a different church, but we would meet at different functions and stuff like that.
So now you're back here. You got your lady.
I got my lady.
And you're...
It took a while to get my lady, but I got her.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So then when did you start... What did you say?
Aw.
When did you start doing the pastor work?
So, I took a couple years getting back to church. I was heavily involved in youth ministry, and I ran a bunch of the music for youth. And this is where, I really started picking up guitar. I'd started earlier, but really kind of because I was singing more, and, the worship thing is, if you're leading worship, you want to have an acoustic guitar in your hands type of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's where I really started pursuing guitar. And I was probably 18, 19 before I really started actually trying to learn how to play an instrument. The rest had all just been kind of singing. I played drums a lot too.
Mm-hmm. When did you start writing?
I actually have been writing songs for a long time. I forgot about a bunch of them, but I remember writing as a kid, kind of when my parents split up, just these, I don't know if they were even full songs, but I started putting stuff together. And in church, I would write songs for people that, were going through stuff. I don't know. And then I started writing worship songs to be included in the sets at church and stuff. So I feel like lyrically, that's probably where that all started, at least.
Okay. Well,
in church.
It seems like a very natural continuation of that to ask. You seem like you're not writing worship songs anymore.
Nope.
So what happened? What happened there? To the degree that you're willing to talk about or comfortable.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's just I got to a point where I'll just put it this way. It was no longer real enough for me to continue in.
Okay.
Faith and that type of thing. So I left very abruptly. And I, from there, just started meeting people in the music scene around here. I played keys in a couple bands, and just kept writing.
To what degree do you still find that in your lyrics?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Or is it something you find? Is it something you lean into? Tell me about that process.
Totally. I still read the Bible, actually, because the Bible's it's an incredible book, honestly. I mean, it's a fucked up book, but it's an incredible book, too. And it's just so full of good language and stories. I mean, I feel like storytelling is my forte, or at least through song. And so religious stuff shows up in my lyrics all the time. I don't think I can help it. You know what I mean? it's just a part of who I am, I guess.
Springsteen talks about that, like because he was raised Catholic, and then he's not Catholic.
Yeah.
But he talked about they get that in your bones early.
Totally.
And then you find that sort of, you're working through it or working with it or whichever.
Well, it covers such a huge range of the human experience and emotion and response to things the Bible does and religion, and it influences even. I mean, it's all over our politics and every decision that people make in this country and other countries across the world, depending on what religions they're involved in. I mean, it's just such a huge part of all of our lives, whether you believe in it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, it's just a great place to pull inspiration from.
Yes, Sally makes his coffee, measures out the medicine, still waiting on the VA on the phone.
In fact, I've met a bunch of people at ACM. I think that's kind of how I got introduced to a lot of people in the scene, is through that, because several people in my band have at least
How did you
been through.
I think you had Bumble. I think you had just gotten out of the church, and at least you told me you were just going through Facebook and like friending anyone with a guitar in their picture. And I had a guitar in my picture.
Yeah, you
Is that right? Were you
definitely
trying to make contacts?
Because I mean, my everything. Yes, I was definitely like friending anyone with a guitar.
But I don't think I'd met you for until 2 or 3 years after that. I'd known of you for a while, but
Yeah, I think we met at JJ's Alley is another place I should mention, because when I got out of church, someone brought me there, and they do this Sunday thing. It was called the Seventh Day Rebellion, and it used to be a lot bigger deal than it is now. But every Sunday would be a collective of musicians that would get together, and you just try new shit out, just try new songs out. And I mean, for years, I did that for several years, and met many people through that as well. I'm really thankful for JJ's Alley, because it was I started going there pretty quickly after I got out of church. Mm-hmm. And when you're around people and drinking and just swapping songs and stuff like that, it's not long before you develop friendships and stuff.
Right.
Carter Sampson is someone I met there. I think you guys I feel like I remember you walking
That's
up to
where
me
we
one
met.
time. Yeah.
just talking bluegrass.
Just talking grass, dude, and smoking it.
Okay. And then how long after you guys have started playing did you come into the picture?
Gabe and I have been friends for a long time, but I didn't meet Jason until we started working on the album, I don't think, right?
I think the first time I ever saw you, we were playing at the Speakeasy, and you were in the crowd leaning against the wall. And I was nervous because I knew
Sounds
he
like
was...
he was loving every minute
I
of
was
it.
nervous.
That's so
I was
cool.
like, that's Taylor.
Just the cool guy.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to burn one down?
I mean, I've said this a million times to a million different people, but like Jason, I feel is a different caliber than like 99% of other people. I probably shouldn't say that, but
Name names.
so specifically,
I wrote a list of who I think he's better than.
no, but like, I mean, I am totally like, I had a band forever and did that whole thing, like playing shitty tours to, you know, like that whole thing forever. And I am totally like past the point in my life where I want to be playing in bands. Whenever you're in your early 20s and you're doing that stuff, it's fun and all of the above. But then, I mean, you get to a point to where you're like, okay, I have a wife and a mortgage and, you know what I mean? Like, you got to figure out a way to, like, the whole playing in a band thing, you know, isn't necessarily the sweet spot of how to make a bunch of money. And so it's kind of like, I got super involved in all the licensing stuff and like, you know, you start making like a real living doing music stuff. And so it's just kind of like, okay, I don't have to be gone and sleeping in a Econo Lodge and,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
If
And like,
hearing your song in Teen Mom for the first time. No going back.
I mean, I think it's just like changing the way that you do music, you know what I mean? And like being able to like only be involved in projects that you want to be involved in,
Right.
and that kind of stuff.
Well, once you start having a family, you've got kids, you got a wife, then it's a different level of sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
you
that's
don't have the time to waste.
right. And I mean, I feel like, you know, just part of, as cliche or cheesy as that sounds, like just part of growing up is like you don't want to waste that time. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're like a career-minded person, like you're not wanting to do stuff that's not going to benefit you, you know, period. Mm-hmm. But like I play with them because like like legitimately love the music.
I would definitely say that, I mean, your influence on this record is
Dude, yeah.
the reason
Taylor's
it's
the
a record.
secret sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, we started out doing this at your place, and it would have probably been a lot of acoustic guitars and dobros, and it sounded a lot different. I mean, Taylor's imprint is all over this record.
Well, to what degree are you guys involved with the songwriting? I mean, is it all together? Is that something are you coming to the table with?
This past time, no.
Yeah,
this past time was like they were fully formed.
Songwriting to me can be a very, very lonely. It's very solitary. And you were talking in an interview I read of yours where you talked about doing a lot of your either songwriting or songwriting contemplation when you're driving. Having two kids makes that tough. So then whenever you're bringing in a team to do it, that's the dynamic entirely.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like writing scripts, I can write scripts all the time. But
Sure.
if I brought in 3 people to sit there with me, like that's a different challenge, and everybody's
Totally.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, I feel like even the stuff that like we're working on new things now, even the stuff that are more joint efforts, like you're still bringing the meat of it to the table. Like it's based around like an idea or something that he already has.
We're also still experimenting with that too, because the record I had already done and started the beds for most of these songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always. I mean, it's always like a tough thing. Period. Like not just with Jason, with anyone. Like if you're actually being a quote unquote producer, like it's always a tough role to play. Anyways, to be like, some band comes out and they've been working on the song for 2 years, and you hear it for the first time, and 2 hours later, be the guy saying like, "Hey, this chorus sucks. I think we can make it better." So I mean, like, you definitely like run into resistance or like people who are willing to do things and people who aren't. And Jason is like, I think that's one of the reasons it's so great. It's like you're one of the people that's like, yeah, try anything. Like I don't care. He has like no preconceived notions about anything. It's like, okay, let's make this country song sound like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah,
And I mean, like,
you'd send him home with like tracks to listen to, and
Yeah.
part of that is like him growing up, like not listening to
for sure.
a lot of that music, not hearing a lot of Led Zeppelin or stuff, and
yeah, I think like Rugrats came up one time. You didn't know what Rugrats were.
I have to, but I haven't seen the show. I kind of like that I don't know a lot of shit. It makes it
Me too.
less ego-driven.
yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah, that's another great thing. Is Jason's you operate with pretty much like zero ego in anything, which is awesome. Because I mean, like, I think regardless of what world you work in, humility is always like one of the greatest qualities to have in a coworker or a collaborator.
Yeah,
collaborator.
We're trying to blow up and act like we don't know nobody. Man.
Well, it's hard to maintain that when you've got a spotlight on you.
Yeah,
know what I
for
mean?
sure.
I'm looking forward to being a dick.
Well, I'm a man with plans, but they don't always go my way.
Jason Scott is an interesting guy to speak with. He balances candid and guarded on a tightrope. We talked a bit about his old days in the church, about how somewhere along the way he started chasing down something else.
I'm a ship sailing on your
His kids ran with us as we took a walk through the Plaza District, talked about being fathers and husbands, the balance of that and the chase of everything else. Both of us lucky on our own sides of the street.
Natalie.
There's a tension between who we are and who we're supposed to be, where we've been and where we're going, what we believe in and what we have to let go of. And in that tension, we find the message, and sometimes the words to share it.
It's cold and mean.
Well, I got kind of a one-track minded, very, I get bored very quickly. So just kind of my personality too, I think influences that as far as getting tired of songs already and wanting to write new stuff. And like I said, if you feel like you're growing, it's like anything else. You want to go out and try out some new licks, try out some new tricks, and see what happens.
Do you feel like you've got kind of a constant source of inspiration? Is there something you go to when the well's starting to run dry? Do you have anything like that?
I think a lot of writing is exercise first and then inspiration. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm so distracted all the time with my family life. It's just like sometimes you just have to write whether you're feeling it or not.
Well, I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on inspiration. Like they think you're gonna wake up and it's gonna shine in on you, but the truth is it's exercise, it's discipline, it's work.
Yeah.
And then the good comes.
Yeah, because like even stupid little things that you put together when you weren't feeling anything at all. And like a lot of times song lyrics come to me like after I put them to bed or we put them to bed, I'll lay down on the pillow and my mind will immediately start just going off, and you know, I don't sleep all that well because of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more important, but it's like just doing it all the time. Because even if you get some bones, dude, you could come back, you know, and you might be inspired when you come back to that pile, you know what I mean? And be able to put something together off of something that you wrote the first thing in the morning when you woke up that, you know, you weren't even awake enough to be inspired, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I feel like and I have buddies too that completely disagree with me. One of my good buddies, Zach Copeland, he sends me songs all the time and they're whole. Like, I hardly ever get a whole song at one time. I'm like, they always come in chunks and with thinking and adding more to them. And maybe it's just because my life is so, you know, segmented with my family life and.
Well, you can try pretending of me.
Dude, thank you guys so much for watching my children.
They got you. They got you. We got a bunch of dads around
Look how
here.
great of a dad I am. My kids are running across the street.
We could have put them on leashes.
Dude, I literally thought about, we have like, they're probably too small now, but the backpack or leashes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine me like, just like.
You'd be dragged everywhere. Yeah. Well, talking about writing, which I think this is interesting. It's an interesting exercise. But I was reading about you, and it was an article where it was talking about you writing songs for weddings,
Yeah.
like on request. Tell me about that.
So, man, I've had a wedding come. I kind of started that not too long out of church, and like I had been writing songs a bunch then, and this was just another way that I knew this could force me to have to go through this exercise. And what we typically do is we send these couples like a questionnaire that they fill out, and it's got a bunch of questions. And a lot of times these questionnaires are, you know, I'm looking for a hook, any sort of like content, and they're all about love too. You know what I mean? Because it's a couple story. They're getting married. We're gonna perform it at the wedding.
You're not like writing like a breakup song for
The
the
dark
wedding.
side, the dark side of me is I have
It's never gonna work out. Yeah.
right? I really value that exercise, even though these songs aren't, for the most part, it's not like they're bad. It's just that they're not bad. It's just they're very tailored to this specific experience.
Right.
So that again, it's process for me. It's forcing me to write a song that I know probably isn't going to end up anywhere for me personally, which that's not the point of those tailored tunes anyways, but I'm thankful for being pushed to write oftentimes with hardly anything to write about.
Yeah.
Be surprised how boring.
Well, I think finding the requirement of like having those boundaries where you're having to operate in a particular like spot that
Sure.
maybe is not comfortable to you.
Yeah.
It does require that creativity, and it builds that sort of improvisation.
Yep,
that,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And I feel like it's definitely affected the songwriting that I care more about. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
stuff that's going to end up on a record.
Yeah.
Songwriting is like it's like something you're constantly growing at, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so is being a father. So those two are definitely, they go hand in hand. And I think like, you know, once you have children, responsibility becomes something that's more like palpable, you know what I mean? You have to do these things. From a process point of view, you know, certainly there's emotional influence.
What about being a husband? What about as a husband? Is it?
So yeah, you know, the thing about like, or at least for me, a husband and wife or a marriage, or it's like this is a team effort. You both have different skills in different areas.
Now, is she a musician as well?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Which I'm kind of glad for. Like I do have friends and couples that are both musicians, and it certainly works. But it's kind of nice having my own creative outlet, because a lot of times like being a dad and a husband is exhausting. So being able to have the other side, the creative side of it, is an outlet for me.
Right.
And if she was involved in that, it would be less so. Not that that would be bad.
Right.
Not that that would be bad. It's
Yeah.
just like, this is a place, this is a haven, you know, for me, and a place where I can air out frustrations too, in songs and stuff like that. And I feel like the struggle and the back and forth of being a husband, and the back and forth of being a father, the good stuff and the bad stuff, the learning stuff. That all translates eventually into something, because like I said, I'm constantly growing, you know what I mean? Constantly building.
Baby, we're golden.
It's the songwriter's job to live, man, to feel, to tell our own stories for us sometimes, to carry us on down the road, laugh with us, and cry with us. Mostly, I guess, they remind us we aren't traveling all by ourselves.
I bet he ain't the one been peeling off his clothes every night. We're out here swinging these hammers, yeah, just trying to chip a nickel off the company dime. And I swear the time club must be punch drunk, 'cause these days they go on for years, and the world just spins around in a puddle. Blood, sweat, heaven. Stitching mattresses for 69 cents. They got coffee in the break room. Brenda's got another picture of her ugly ass kids. Yeah, it's just too much for not enough men. An honest wage, it don't pay for shit. And I'm just wandering around this dead end town, trying to find a way to pay my I should have tried my hand in white collar crime, working my fingers down to the knuckle bones. What's a guy gotta do to get back? Down here living for quitting time. And we ain't leaving here until we're all smashed. Well, hey, my, I swear one of these days I might stuff everything